All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to Building a Cyber Resilient Cloud Environment. Today's webinar is sponsored by Hitachi Vantara and their featured guest, Verizon, and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media by Future B2B, and I'm so happy that I get to be your moderator for this conversation because today we all get to join a group of experts in studio who are going to help us unpack modern strategies for cyber resilience. What does that actually mean, right? It sounds great, but what does it actually mean? How do we establish cyber resilient cloud environments in our own organizations? So today we're going to listen in as these leading industry experts walk us through the best practices, top threats, and key insights that you need in order to build a multi-layered defense approach. We are going to get into those important ideas: zero trust principles, operational insights on implementing DevSecOps, how to manage security in an agile and scalable way. We're going to cover everything from trends to actionable insights and lots more. Basically, there is a lot of information coming at us in the next little bit here. So pull up a chair, pour that extra cup of coffee, and get comfortable because I promise you are not going to want to miss a second of this conversation. Lots coming our way. In order for you to get the most out of our time here together today, I do want to give you a little bit of information about the audience console, and then we'll kick things off here. So as we're taking a little tour of your audience console here, I want to start out with the questions window. The questions tab is the best place to get interactive and get involved as we go through our session here today. And I want to see all of you interacting with each other. Post some questions, have some conversations about, start out with your day. How's your day going? Give us a hi, give us a hello. I see we've got Steven here and Greg and Walter. Walter won for me this morning. Hello, Houston. We don't have a problem, says Walter. I love that. We've also got Jeffrey and Juan and Morteza and Ed and Jeff, a whole awesome crew, and lots more coming. So please keep those highs and hellos up as we go through our day. Now, you can also use that questions window, as you know, to reach out to the Actual Tech Media team if you do have any problems. I'm hoping that doesn't come up for us today, but hey, if there's anything going on with audio, video, slides, anything like that, first try a browser refresh. I promise the browser refresh is going to fix most of the usual little tech gremlins. But if the browser refresh doesn't help and you need a little extra hand, you can post in the questions window and our team will be there to help you out. All right, so that's the questions window. Now everyone take one quick little jump over to the handouts tab. There are lots of great resources and follow-ups to our conversation here today. Make sure you've spent some time exploring that handouts tab before we leave. All right, that's the questions window. That's the handouts tab. And next up on our list, you guessed it, prizes. We have a $250 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Now, you do need to be here live and present at the webinar in order to win that gift card, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you are not sure what those T's and C's are, no problem. You can head over to the handouts tab that we were just talking about, click and scroll down, and you will find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. All right, well, that is it for housekeeping. That's all the important level setting information. And now it's time to jump into our session. And I am so excited to introduce you all to our three incredible experts here with us today. We will be chatting with Rajesh Dinadayan, Senior Director, Cloud Security Services at Hitachi Vantara, and Arshad Aziz, Director, Cloud Security, Verizon, and Sanjay Gopal, Senior Partner Sales Manager, AWS Solutions. Is that a rock star crew or what? Come on, that's a lot of star power on one couch. So now we are going to join Rajesh, Arshad, and Sanjay in studio and kick things off. Sanjay, over to you.
Welcome everyone to our webinar on building a cyber-resilient cloud environment. I'm Sanjay Gopal, Partner Sales Manager at Amazon Web Services in our Telecommunications Industry Business Unit. In this webinar, we will explore the latest best practices and strategies for building and operating a secured cloud environment. Our expert panel will discuss the top cloud security risks and how to mitigate them, including the emerging trends in cybersecurity. We'll cover a wide range of topics, including security design, DevSecOps, compliance, and more. Let me introduce our panelists. Arshad Aziz, Director for Verizon Cloud Security, Rajesh Dinadayan, Director, Cloud Security from Hitachi Digital Services. Let's start the conversation with strategy, Rajesh. What is cyber resilience and how does it differ from cybersecurity? What approach must be taken towards implementing a cyber resilient environment?
So cybersecurity and cyber resiliency are related concepts, but they take a different approach in terms of managing and mitigating the security threats, right? So cyber resiliency is taking security and looking at it through the lens of resiliency, right? And it assumes that security incidents and breaches are inevitable in today's threat landscape. And the objective is to build processes and solutions so customers can recover from any security incidents, with minimal business impact. In Hitachi, we build a cyber resilient environment for customers by taking a multi-level defense approach using zero trust principles. So we enforce security controls across, what we call it as 5 Cs. The 5 Cs are cloud, cluster, container, customer data, and code. For example, the cloud layer is where we define what is the account structure, right? We enforce network perimeter security controls, and then we define the identity permissions as a first line of defense. So unlike traditional data center where security is primarily focused on the perimeter, in a cloud environment it's different. So cloud is a perimeterless network. So it's necessary for customers, to enforce security best practices across all layers of the cloud environment, right? So this multi-level defense approach helps customers, and security teams, to mitigate and detect threats before it becomes a severe harm to the environment.
That's great. Arshad, what are the key cybersecurity threats that organizations face today, and what are the best practices to handle them?
So the cyber security threat, obviously it's massive and it's constantly growing. But at a macro level, the trends going on these days, I would say, are starting with stolen credentials. That's becoming a very big threat vector. A lot of people don't realize how they've given out the credentials and that gets used. The other bigger one coming behind it is phishing attacks. So phishing and phishing along with the texting. A lot of attacks happening in industry. And in general, exploiting vulnerabilities, I think, is becoming very bigger. So these are the macro trends. We track it in Verizon very closely. If there's a report that we publish every year, it's called the DBIR, the Data Breach Incident Report, came out last month. That's a very good reference to see. They analyze thousands of different incidents and see where the trends are. But coming down to a micro level at systems and platforms, the cloud and containers, I would say, are among the most vulnerable areas coming up, because it's like Rajesh said, it's perimeterless. So attack vectors on misconfiguration of your accounts, identity and access issues are becoming very serious. Same with containers, all the way from when a container image is built to the pipelines that deploy containers, to at runtime, what kind of access containers have, do they have security at runtime. So cloud and containers at the platform level and the issues that we're seeing at the macro level are becoming very.
Great. Rajesh, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so ransomware is another major threat that, different types of industries and organizations of all sizes, right? They continue to face it. And in general, there is a misconception that ransomware attack happens only to large organizations, but the reality is that even small business organizations or educational institutions also get impacted, right? So just to level set, ransomware is a type of malware where cyber attackers, encrypt files on the victim's system, making the system unusable, right? So in addition to encrypting the files, they also exfiltrate data, which becomes a double extortion, right? And especially if the stolen data contains sensitive information like PII or PHI, then it becomes a major compliance violation. So Hitachi has developed a ransomware risk management framework where we help customers, to strengthen their security defenses, to protect against a ransomware attack, right? So basically, we take a holistic approach to strengthen the defenses, right? So that's the idea. So one critical focus area, part of this solution would be to, have a strong data backup and recovery strategy in place, right? So for example, many of our customers, they use AWS S3 bucket as their primary and backup storage, right? So S3 bucket has got many inbuilt security functionalities. For example, it provides data encryption, right? You can make the bucket private. You could enable versioning on the S3 bucket, so there is multiple copies of data being stored, or you can also do object lock, which provides data protection. So customers can leverage all these different security solutions, and when it is combined with cloud automation, it will help them to quickly recover, from ransomware attacks.
What about stolen credentials?
Yeah, so stolen credentials is another major threat, and in fact, it becomes the primary reason for many other security incidents and breaches, right? In fact, Arshad earlier mentioned about Verizon's DBIR report. In fact, the report says that 31% of the breaches over the last 10 years are somewhat related to stolen credentials, right? That's a pretty consistent, findings, right? So it's important for organizations to secure all these credentials, and they should have a strong password policies, access control policies in place, and customers can leverage solutions like privileged access management, which can help in storing these credentials, and it can automatically rotate these credentials, for compliance requirements.
Let's move into the technology. Arshad, what are some of the emerging trends and technologies in cybersecurity?
Well, if you're talking emerging trend, you have to talk about artificial intelligence and Gen AI. So that's definitely becoming a growing trend. It brings a whole new angle of capabilities and concerns along with it, basically. So obviously at Verizon, we have just released how we're taking AI to our call centers. There are solutions that are being built to improve our customer experience. But from a security lens, the issues that come up on how do you build those models, which models can be used. We are putting our data in the hands of another provider. Is that data, and they're going to use that to train the models, but that data is gone forever. All of those angles of data security come in. And beyond that, there are aspects of, are there issues where the models are going to hallucinate, as model poisoning. Those topics have to be looked at, all the way to things like responsible AI, basically. So at Verizon, we have at the leadership level, this is a main focus. They have there's an AI council that has been established at the exec level. There's working committees, there's approval process, so on. So we're trying to be ahead of this emerging trend. But beyond that, there's the second trend that's coming in the areas of encryption. That's another one. I mean, encryption, we've been doing it for the past 20 years. That's not a big deal. But the game changer technology is coming in. One of them is searchable encryption. It's basically you encrypt your data once, you can share it with others, they can search through it, but they cannot decrypt it. So to protect your data, the technology is called homomorphic encryption, basically. Mm-hmm. That's picking up, and I think it's going to, actually that will also help the AI use case, because the one thing stopping people from getting into AI is how secure is your data, basically. The other area coming in encryption is the whole the technology coming behind with quantum computing. So yes, today we believe our encryption is secure, no one can reverse engineer it, with today's computing power. But tomorrow when quantum computing comes, it's still a little out there, but it's coming, where the current encryption can be reverse engineered in a few days. So how do you build protection along those things? So that's another trend that we are focusing on in Verizon cybersecurity. How to be ready when quantum computing comes, and what's the game plan to protect and keep our encryption standards going, basically.
Great. Rajesh, what's your opinion on Gen AI?
I think the use of generative AI for cybersecurity is a very logical step, especially with the rise of many large language models. Generative AI has a huge potential to strengthen security, right? Because if you look at it, security is all about dealing with huge amount of data, and how do you quickly get insights out of it, right? So Gen AI can provide many use cases for cybersecurity, especially from a cyber defense standpoint. For example, we can simulate different attack vectors, specific to the customer's, risk environment, and we can create detection rules based on that, right? And why do we even need to use Gen AI for security is because the attackers are already started using it, right? So attackers are using it for creating new attack patterns. They are using Gen AI for executing attacks at scale, right? And they are able to do this with minimal investment and minimal skill set. So it's essential for the security practitioners, also to have an equivalent defense, if not one step ahead, right, to fight this battle.
And Hitachi does a lot of work in the OT space. What do you see happening in OT security?
I think the convergence of IT and OT security is what we are seeing with many of our OT customers. Traditionally, if you look at it, OT systems, they were all isolated, air-gapped. It was all managed by a separate team. However, with the integration of IT and OT systems, businesses are seeing a lot of benefits, right? Because now they're able to reduce their operational cost. Now they have a single converged team managing both the infrastructure. They're able to leverage the best practices of IT systems on the OT side, right? The modern principles and even the cloud capabilities, right? But the downside of all these things is that the security issues associated with IT systems, they get extended to the OT systems. And especially with the current geopolitical situation and the rise of nation state sponsored attacks, the risks associated with OT systems have significantly increased. These OT systems have a different risk appetite, as compared to the IT systems, right? So, for example, in IT systems, a security first approach is taken, right? Whereas in OT systems, a safety first, a resiliency first approach is taken. So, what it means is that the security controls enforced on these OT systems, it cannot affect the safety or the availability of those OT systems. So the converged team which are managing these IT and OT systems, they need to be aware of these operating procedures and process specific to these OT systems.
That's great. Arshad, what do you find specific from a security threat perspective in telecom?
So the telecom industry, compared to other verticals, healthcare or financials, we have a little more complexity that we have to deal with, because in those sectors, you're facing only loss of data. But with telcos like us, we have a network with a user, with a device in hand, with an operating system. So all of those become attack vectors, basically. That's a little different how in telco cybersecurity, we have to be more of that. Specifically for telecom, trends that we see, I would say the number one would be SIM swaps. That's a very big threat that we always watch out for. A SIM swap, if you don't know what it is basically someone trying to say, I've lost my phone, and they try to get your SIM transferred to their device. And now once they're in your device, they can go into your email, your bank accounts and everything. So SIM swap is a very big telco threat. Number port out is another similar one. Basically, they try to move the number from your telco to another telco, basically. And then you've lost not only just your access, you've lost your number also, basically, at that point. A third one would be even something as simple as illegal call forwarding. If someone is able to hack your phone and forward your calls, next thing you know, they can call your bank and say, I've lost my password, and call me back with a one-time token, and now they're in your account, basically. So these kind of device-related, number-related things that we face in telco is pretty unique. But like all of telcos in the world, we have a lot of monitoring, a lot of protection. We've been doing this for a while. That's how we detect and block these kind of attacks, basically.
So let's move a little bit into the scalability. Rajesh, what is your view on DevSecOps, and how does it help in application development?
So DevSecOps is a software engineering culture and process, right? So that helps in unifying different teams like the development team, the security team, and operations team to come together and work closely, so they are able to build and develop a secure product. The basic idea is, how do we infuse a culture of, joint ownership and accountability so that the teams prioritize the security part of their development work, right? So Hitachi's DevSecOps framework is built using a security by design and security by default approach. We take a shift-left security strategy and we try to identify issues and remediate security issues as early as possible in the application lifecycle, right? So this proactive approach reduces the possibility of introducing security issues in the code base so that development teams don't have to spend time and effort later in the application development process, right? Or even after the code gets deployed into the production. So key aspects of this strategy includes doing a threat modeling part of the design phase, having automated security testing, runtime security protection, and making sure you have continuous monitoring on the overall process.
Great. Arshad, do you have something to add there?
No, pretty much that, but just another to add on to that. In addition to all of that, in Verizon, we also look at, from DevSecOps, we also look at the DevSecOps, the DevOps pipelines that we use. That's a very key part of how you secure your DevSecOps culture. And this goes all the way from the code repositories and who has access, and do we have our source code being leaked and so on, basically. The CI/CD pipelines that are delivering that code, are those pipelines secure itself or not? And then we introduce a lot of concepts called gating. So this is the maturity that we're going after. Is it's not only good enough to just scan your code, it's good enough. If it has vulnerabilities, it has to stop. It cannot go to production, basically. So that's another maturity concept. But overall, yes, it's a combination of the shifting left, secure scanning, and blocking as part of the entire lifecycle, basically.
Got you. So being in a large org, how do you handle security at scale, and how do you deal with tool fatigue and alert fatigue?
Sure, yeah. So scale has, especially a company like Verizon, anything we do is at massive scale, not just development. And especially in the cloud space, scale and speed are paramount to us, basically. So the way we have tackled it over the last few years is we call it security as code. So there's no concept of running scans and running reports and chasing people. Those things don't scale at the speed. So we write a lot of infrastructure code that scans activities going on, and if things are non-compliant, they don't meet our standards, they're either immediately blocked from going, or they are fixed, or they're terminated. That's how we're doing it in real time. So that's how the foundation of scale starts, is use code to automate things and security, not have humans chasing things, basically. And then beyond that, there is going to be, this is what we can do with our homegrown capabilities. But you always have to use tools. We cannot just build everything on our own. So tools come in two flavors. There are tools which we call cloud agnostic tools, especially in companies like us, we're a multi-cloud company. Is it better to have one tool that can monitor and scan all clouds? Or these days, even with some of the cloud providers, the inbuilt native tools have advanced a lot. There's no right or wrong. We look at it on a case-by-case basis. In some cases, a cloud agnostic tool is better. Sometimes the cloud native tools are better. But the combination of homegrown controls, cloud native controls, and cloud agnostic controls is how we scale up our monitoring and detection and blocking capabilities, basically.
So let's talk people and processes, Rajesh. What can customers do to strengthen their security programs?
Customers should start with developing a risk management framework that aligns to their risk strategy as well as business priorities, right? So they can leverage industry frameworks like the NIST CSF, which is the cybersecurity framework, or AWS well-architected framework, or even CIS controls, right? So these things will help them to benchmark their current security maturity level, right? Also, the framework and controls will help them to define what tools and technologies are needed. So customers, generally think that, they need like a huge $1 million budget when it comes to strengthening security, right? But that's not true. So as Arshad mentioned, cloud native security services can be leveraged. These services are very much matured now. For example, customers can use, AWS Guard Duty. They can use Security Hub. They can also use Amazon OpenSearch as a SIM solution, right? Customers can start using these services on their critical production accounts and start expanding to their other lower environments, right, as they scale their environment. So in fact, a report shows that 98% of the attacks happen because of a lack of cybersecurity hygiene, right? So which tells us that, customers have to primarily focus on strengthening their foundational security best practices. I think these things will certainly help customers strengthen their resilient architecture.
Arshad, what's your opinion on what Rajesh has just said?
No, I agree, especially the culture part that Rajesh talked about. So for enterprises like Verizon and other Fortune 500 companies, the culture thing starts at the top. You got to have executive sponsorship for the security programs. And if your business leaders, the C-suite, if they're not aligned that security is a must-have from the get-go, and it's an always afterthought, doesn't matter which framework you use, you'll never get there. So that's kind of how we're approaching it. Is we call it security by design, is the term we use internally in Verizon, where from the get-go, from the time we start designing a product or a network or anything, security teams are at the table from before, even if the design comes out. So it's security by design. It's not what we call bolt-on security at the end. The week before production, we're trying to get a security review and approval done. So if you got that executive sponsorship, then you move on into the training programs, the upskilling, the culture that goes along with it, and then obviously tools, budget, funding come behind it basically. But we've started at the top and brought it down to a security culture, running simulation exercises, marathons, and so on basically that have come along.
Great. And Rajesh, how does Hitachi upskill their employees?
Yeah, I can't agree more with what Harshit said, right? So people play a major role in the success of any security program, right? So in Hitachi, we do a lot of wide range of security services for our customers. So we have specific security training plan established for each of our security domains. Mm-hmm. We continuously cross-train and upskill our engineers, so they can work across different security domains, right? In fact, many of our security engineers were network engineers, developers, and cloud engineers before, right? And they have been doing a great job because they understand the fundamentals of the systems, and they also understand the pain points of the other team.
Great. Well, let's move on to operations and compliance. Rajesh, what can customers do to build a cyber resilient security operations?
Right. So I think for building an effective cyber resilient operations, customers have to look at their disaster recovery plan, their business continuity plan, their incident response plan, and operating procedures. So all these things have to come together and align to their risk management framework, right? So that's sort of a first step. In terms of the technology side, in Hitachi, what we do is a engineering-led operations model. So unlike traditional security operations model where the security teams are all siloed, and then they focus primarily on triaging and resolving security incidents, right? So any continuous improvement is usually handled as a separate initiative, mm-hmm. right? So whereas in an engineering-led model, the security operations team also has an engineering skill set. So these engineers understand what design is, how the environment is designed, right? And what are the security automation codes, what is proactive guardrail policies. So depending on the type of events and alerts and insights that they see on the security operations side, they provide continuous feedback, and they make changes to the controls or changes to the design, so that this entire continuous improvement becomes part of the operational process, right? So this is on the technology side. And in terms of the process, if I have to talk about a specific area, I think that would be having a strong and well-defined incident response plan, right? So the incident response plan should define who are the internal and external stakeholders, right? So what are their roles and responsibilities? What is the communication plan in the event of an incident, right? And what are the sequence of steps each of the teams have to take, during a critical incident, right? So all these things are very essential part of the incident response plan, and most important is practice the plan, right? So organizations should do periodic tabletop exercise. They have to perform end-to-end testing, and they should capture the learnings out of those testing and continue to refine the incident response plan. These two aspects, the technology side and the process side, together helps in building a cyber resilient operational environment for customers.
Well, Rajesh and Arshad, thank you very much for your time and your expertise on a very informative session on cloud resilience. We'll look forward to another session in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you.
Oh, wow, team. Such an interesting conversation and lots covered there. I really appreciate, as we said, sort of being able to be a fly on the wall in the studio and just absorb all of your interesting content and ideas. Definitely covered a lot. And I appreciate the balance between really the high level ideas and kind of exploring some of the philosophies and ideologies of resilience, and then also getting into some of those key tactics and takeaways, things that we can implement in our own organization. So again, a big thank you to you, Rajesh, Arshad, and Sanjay, for that very fascinating conversation. For those of you that are looking to learn a little bit more right away, a couple of things. One, all of the questions that you send in, we are going to get sent on over to the team so that they will respond to you. So if you have some questions for Hitachi Vantara that you would like to dig into a little bit further, get those into the console right now, and we will make sure that those questions get answers back. So do send those questions in, and we will get your responses back. Now, another way that you can learn a little bit more right away is to head on over to the handouts tab. There's a data sheet there on AWS services to enable resiliency. And again, it really kind of digging in a little bit further. It's a little one pager, but it packs a punch. There's a lot of great information in there about AWS and Hitachi Vantara. So please be sure that you've checked that out. There's also an ESP showcase, Achieving Application Resilience in the Cloud. So this is going to be a wonderful follow-up, little expansion on what we just dug into. So make sure you've got that put aside as well. These are really wonderful ways. A lot of times we think, oh, I'm going to remember all that. I got that. I've locked that away in my brain. And then later we're like, oh, what was that thing that they said? I know Sanjay said something about that. So these handouts are a great way to jog your memory and make sure you can relive all of the fun that we had in our session today. So do check those out. Well, speaking of fun, we do have a $250 Amazon gift card as a prize giveaway right now. So that is going to go to someone who is here live and present at the webinar and a little bit lucky, as always. Our special winner today is Roland Coe from California. Roland Coe from California. Congratulations to you, Roland. Now, as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up the webinar, so stay tuned for that. All right, well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Hitachi Vantara for making this webinar possible, and their special guest. A big, giant thank you to Rajesh, to Arshad, and to Sanjay for guiding us through such a fascinating conversation. Really, really interesting, and I appreciate you sharing all of that insight with us. As always, my biggest high five, my biggest thank you goes to all of you here in the audience with us today for taking time out of your lunch day or your snack break or wherever you're joining us from in the world. Maybe this is how you're wrapping up your workday. I say this a lot, but it is very easy to just be in it, to just roll, and forget to take that step back, to look up and look ahead. And this time of year is a great time to be thinking about, if you have not revisited your cyber resiliency strategy in a little while, now is the time. Now is a great time to make sure that you are updating, enhancing, checking, and just making sure that you're still meeting your organizational needs. So I hope that that's how you're feeling today, is fired up and ready to take action in your own organizations. Most of all, I hope that you've learned some interesting things and had a good time. I hope that I'll get to see all of you at a webinar again soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all.